Well, this is a special edition of The Marketplace coming up as Ghana and the rest of the world mourns the death of former President Rawlings. We take a look at some of his economic reforms. Also, tributes have been pouring in from the business community. The president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Guta, says his death means a lot to traders. Hello once again. Now, the former President John Rawlings has died, and of course we've seen so many reactions from the business community when it comes to his legacies on the economic front. Now, this whole particular contribution to Ghana's economy in the beginning of the Fourth Republic has seen so many people within the space of economic landscape joining in via Zoom to help us understand the impact of his death, his contributions to the economy, as former Finance Minister said Tekwe, who's worked closely with the former president on matters concerning the economy. Of course, I believe he joins us right now. Many thanks for joining us, sir. First of all, will it be fair for us to say that the policies introduced by the former president have indeed helped to shape the economic architecture of Ghana?
Good afternoon to your viewers. Yes, without doubt, the policies, have shaped, the present day economic management. And the reason I say that is that one would have to go beyond 1983 in the past to see a situation where Ghana's economy went up and down almost every year, between growth and recession. I think the launch of the structural adjustment program between 1983 and 1985, to be precise, that brought about the stability in fiscal and monetary management, as well as real sector strategies that we see today. One useful indicator, the most headline of all, which is growth, is that I have repeated that since 1983, when we achieved a very high growth as a result of the structural adjustment program or economic recovery program, Ghana for nearly 40 years has not experienced negative growth, even when other major African economies are facing recession. One example being between 2014 and 2015, when crude oil prices fell, and as a result of our domestic pressures like Dumso and others, in addition to the global financial crisis, a decade, Ghana did not go into recession at the time Nigeria, Angola, South Africa, and others went into recession. And that is because of the inherent adjustments that come with the structural adjustment program, which is a legacy of the Rawlings era.
Speaking of the legacies, do you also think that the current development vindicates the introduction of the value-added tax by the former President Jerry Rawlings amidst various condemnation?
Well, you spoke about my working with the, I believe you were referring to President Rawlings. I must say that, yes, I was part of the work done, but from a distance initially, early, and until the VAT, I hadn't come, that close, even though I had the privilege of having worked under Mr. Tua Hoya at the Structural Adjustment Program and National Revenue Secretariat, which gave birth to GRA, to work quite closely. And you mentioned, VAT, which was among many, many reforms that were implemented, the one that was the most challenging, I believe, for the administration, because VAT should have come earlier during the other reforms when we had autonomy for the revenue agencies and created IRS SEPs. When we rationalized the objectives of all the taxes, we did some expenditure management, real sector management, like the energy sector. If we have time, we can talk about some of these. Unfortunately, it was the VAT. But yes, I think it's, you can say President Rawlings and the team that brought about the VAT have indicated today, because the VAT has become the most stable, of our revenue sources. And that is because the VAT is predominantly dedicated to generating revenue compared to, say, tariffs, which have a protective function as well as revenue, and excises, which, are punitive and therefore are often called sin taxes. So, yeah, I think that the Rawlings era and regime has been vindicated on the point of VAT. And it's interesting that VAT was launched and relaunched in 1999. So this is the 20th anniversary, of the relaunch of the VAT after the cancellation and relaunch in 1999. So that itself is testimony to the vision that the man had as a leader. He entrusted people with work and he allowed them to implement. And this is one of the things which I believe anybody who has served under, President Rawlings. The economic team, some of the names I worked under, obviously Dr. Butchie, his deputies, late Mr. Misata, the late Salome, Moses Asaga briefly, Honorable Moses Asaga, and many, others, Mr. Toahoy, as I mentioned. Of course, you can't omit names like Joe Abe, and when you start doing this.
Interesting. Mr. Tekwe, also, I'm very curious to find this particular, argument out. Talking about the ideology of President Rawlings, the late, President Rawlings' economic reforms. Many of us still, young people out there, interested to know, was it much more of a socialist ideology or somewhat of a capitalist one? Looking at the ideologies, of course, of the National Democratic Congress.
Of course, as the founder of the party, the ideology of the party is social democracy. And therefore, I think that, I would say that that is the ideology for the party that is founded, and that is what, but the points you are probably alluding to is pragmatism in managing the economy. I think that the Rawlings era, and that is what makes it, brings up the question of whether, it was a capitalist economy, a socialist or communist, as some have said. I would say it is social democracy, but with a real sense of pragmatism about what works. Because in economic policy, you face many challenges. And I think that countries like China, which are deemed communist but have significant market economy, issues, few people know that China Exim and CDB actually make most of their money, not from the Chinese government, but from ratings in Western economies. They compete with the Western economies. So I would say that for Rawlings and the team that he led, they were pragmatic enough to go to the fund. They were because, like 2015, if you are faced with a situation where budget support is being withdrawn, and your only option is to go to the IMF and the World Bank, that's what you have to do. Whilst your own policies, such as the Stabilization Fund and others, come in, which I would say are second-generation policies that came with the rationalization, particularly of the fiscal regime under the Rawlings administration. Looking
into the crystal ball, finally, where do you, argue out Ghana's economic direction, considering all that you've told us regarding the visionary legacy of the former, president who has, passed away, unfortunately? Where do you see, or how do you project Ghana's economic standing in the future under the wings of, former President Rawlings' economic legacy?
Well, if Rawlings had, for example, oil, had done rebasing, and the growth of the services sector, which started in the 90s and actually shot up with under President Kufuor, I believe that the economy would have been, more stable than what we see today. Because why do I say this? Ghana has become a middle-income country. Ghana has gone through a transition where the services sector is the largest sector of the economy, where you have banking, you have transportation, and whatever, which we must respond to. But unfortunately, under the current situation where COVID notwithstanding, we have, deficit facing us of 15%, where COVID is just 3% of this, and you have debts of about 80%. No, this is the sort of trajectory which was corrected in the 1990s, and incidentally is a trajectory that we need to correct. And it is important that we get a bit concerned about these numbers that have been thrown about, and about the change in some of the policies, in some of the measures, such as how do you calculate the deficits? The framework since, and these are under legacy of the Rawlings administration.
Sure.
The framework for calculating deficits have been defined over a period of nearly 40 years. Why change it now? The framework for determining what is debt has been defined for nearly 40 years. Why change it now? So I would call for stability, in a way we do not just complications that manage the economy, in order that the economy can return to a path, and this is a mixture of not just private sector policies, but having a dose of social intervention. There is one word which actually defines social intervention, which is also a Rawlings legacy, and that word is PAMSCAT. Some of adjustments to mitigate the program. Yes, an adjustment to mitigate the effects of structural adjustment. PAMSCAT for that matter.
Sure. Mr.
It was at a time when everybody thought everything that was being done was liberalization, and others it was launched to respond, and so you have a mix of economic policy, and I believe today, if you want to justify social democracy, if you want to justify social intervention, we are debating which of the two governments, past and present, is heavy on social intervention. Would you ask whether the MPP has become communist or socialist for that matter? Yeah.
Well, we'll leave that to the economists to decide. But we're so grateful that you joined us, with that particular explanation there, Tech with the former finance minister, sharing with us the economic reforms, the legacy of the former late President Jerry Rawlings there. Very insightful piece of information, if you do ask me. But let's stay on this issue, because my colleague George Rafi has been through the archives of the former president's economic reforms and has brought us more in this report.
It all started around 1983 with the Economic Recovery Program under the guidance of the IMF and the World Bank, which was aimed at reducing the country's total debt stock at that time. This was to ensure that Ghana would be in a better position to pay back its debt on time, stabilize the economy, and attract the required capital into the country. Fast forward, there was a new initiative, that is, the Program of Action to mitigate the social cost of all these adjustment programs, popularly called PAMSCAT. It was under this program that we saw some serious rural development, the water and sanitation program, and moved electricity supply to several rural parts in the country. Well, how can one forget the value of that tax and the initiative by President Rawlings, which was met with some great opposition at that time that was introduced. However, for some, it has gone down as one of the best tax types currently in the country. In 1995, President Rawlings presented to Parliament a document titled Vision 2020. This was aimed at making Ghana a middle-income country by that date. Well, it appears we achieved this status even before the year 2020. According to some analysts, economic events, happenings, and policies under the reign of former President Rawlings indeed has influenced current economic programs. We can also not forget about his two right-arm men, that is Professor Kwesi Botchwey and Kwame Pepra, who spearheaded some of his major economic programs, and how they still continue to play some essential role in the broader economy of today.
Now, tributes have been pouring in from the business community. The president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Dr. Joseph Obin, says his death means a lot to traders in Ghana.
On behalf of the trading community in Ghana, I wish to extend my heartfelt condolences to the family of the former president of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, on his departure from this earth early hours of today. It saddens our heart to lose such a great leader. He was a people-centered leader who protected the vulnerable. He worked hard for his nation, transformed from military leadership into the democracy that we are enjoying today. We will always remember this great leader. May his soul rest in perfect peace.
And even as tributes continue to pour in massively, we shall be giving you each and every statement that the Ghanaian business community issues surrounding the passing of Jerry John Rawlings. But away from that, Ghana has made some strong showing in the latest ABSA Global Financial Market Index rankings. It went up by 7 places to 6th out of 23 countries in Africa, reviewing in the rankings. Now, Ghana's strongly showing was influenced by 2 pillars, that is the active foreign exchange and the stronger legal framework. The index looked at how developed the financial markets are in these 23 countries and highlights how supportive they are in environment for effective markets. Komla Nyalete is the head of global markets at ABSA Bank, Ghana.
On the whole, if you take your, if we go back to 4 years ago, on the whole, countries on the continent are making progress, meaning that they are paying attention to the need to strengthen the financial infrastructure across the continent. Year on year, comparing 2019 to 2020, Ghana did very well, anchored on 2 pillars in particular: access to foreign exchange and legality and enforceability of contracts. And there are some real initiatives that underpin this. In particular, I can speak to the new Corporate Insolvency Act that was passed this year, which clearly makes netting enforceable in Ghana. So Ghana's work, as a result of prior year recommendations, prior year identification of areas in need of work, has paid off in 2020.
Access to FX is one area that we made stronger. Can it be attributed to the Bank of Ghana decision to kind of release, to allow the banks to hold these FX from gold proceeds and all the rest, that has contributed to this?
Absolutely, absolutely. In all markets, really, the first point of call, for corporates, individuals, institutional investors to access, FX, should be the interbank, foreign exchange market. But I know if you look at the structure of our economy, right, where our FX inflows are from specific defined sources, cocoa exports, gold exports, recently oil, export, you will see that a lot of these FX flows does come to the central bank. Therefore, invariably, the participation and the manner and the mode of the participation of the central bank in the market, is important. Therefore, a few years ago, when the central bank does relinquished the requirement for mining entities to continue to sell, their flows, to the central bank, they now move into the interbank market, and the competition in the interbank market, the ability to price discover, has led to a significant growth in turnover, as reported. And again, as you heard from the moderator, hopefully a few years down the road, similar in code liberalization could be extended to other sectors to further deepen and grow the turnover in the market.
One would say that, but who is benefiting from this access to FX? Is it the same foreign investors or those who are holding foreign assets that are benefiting from this? Or they are those who are the local inhabitants of this economy are benefiting from these FX, and that is where the problem is, as in the capital flights and all the rest.
Yeah, no, I can say quite very confidently that this year, the beneficiaries are really, and increasingly the big beneficiaries are local. The beneficiaries are businesses, really, in Ghana.
Well, you're still watching The Marketplace. We're taking a short break this day. We shall be back soon. And And you're welcome back. Now, small and medium-sized enterprises will need to re-strategize to withstand external competition when the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is implemented. Now, the agreement being rolled out from next year will allow free flow of goods among member countries without hindrance. Though the agreement presents huge markets for all industries, competition in local market is expected to increase. Nanaya Ojima has more in this report.
African countries currently trade only 15% of goods and services produced by member countries internally, compared to 55% traded in advanced economies in Europe and America. It is estimated the African Continental Free Trade Area, after 2 years of implementation, will raise internal trade to 52%. Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Robert Ahunka-Lindsay, wants local businesses to take advantage of government policies to prepare for the market. He spoke at a regional conference in Kumasi on the National Export Development Strategy and the implementation of the AfCFTA.
What is important to harness this is that we don't want to be doing the same thing we were doing before. We don't want to be selling cocoa beans to Côte d'Ivoire. First of all, they're not going to want it because they've got enough cocoa beans there. We want to be selling chocolate to them. So that is why the government policy of the industry, one district, one factory, industrial transformation becomes so key, so that you have products to sell. If you don't have the products to sell, what are you going to take advantage of? So it becomes very important how that is integrated.
The National Export Development Strategy, driven by the Ghana Export Promotion Council, is aligned to government's industrialization agenda to increase non-traditional exports revenue to over $25 billion in the next 9 years. Dr. Efua Asabia Asare is CEO of GEPA.
The NEDS has outlined strategic interventions that should be taken at the regional and district levels, particularly relating to supply capacity improvement of our major export products, which features prominently under Pillar 1 of the strategy document. Again, it is expected that each district in Ghana should develop at least one exportable product that will provide the needed raw materials to feed over expanding number of factories being established, and this is under GEPA's suggested one district, one product program.
Ashanti region, with its resources and proximity to the country's biggest export country, Burkina Faso, is tagged key to the success of the program. Board chairman of Ghana Export Promotion Council, Sandy Osei Ajaman, believes local businesses will have to improve their goods and services to stay afloat.
You only protect them if we make sure that they can compete with quality, they can compete with better packaging, they can compete with better understanding what the market is. If you don't do your job right, somebody from, say, Egypt, who has similar product, packaged well, will come out here and take your business. Nothing you can do about it. So that's why we're doing this sensitization program to let.
For JoyNews, Nanaya Ojima reporting.
And that'll be all for this edition of The Marketplace. My name is Charles Aitik.